Today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks for playing the Sylvaneth army in Age of Sigmar. Spiky bits. Make sure you stay in the trenches by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today. Alright, well, it's Season of War time, and today we're going to give you some ideas on basically what to field, how this book works, why this is probably the best Battletome that they've put out to date. It's got a ton of rules in here. We didn't even scratch the surface in our first look unboxing or first look review of this book here. So I wanted to jump right into it and kind of spend another, 15-20 minutes basically talking about what's going on competitively for the what else, or the Sylvaneth, or whatever you want to call them. Now, the rules themselves, what I like to generally do in these videos is we start at the back, or a lot of times I like to start with the war gear, but in this particular instance, we don't really have points values for the stuff. So we know the General's Handbook is coming out, and they have all the points values for the Sylvaneth models right here. So I feel like that would be a good place to start, and then we can start getting into some of the other stuff like the war gear, the spells, the battalions, and how those can play out on the tabletop, because basically this is the only thing that costs points. The other stuff you can basically just nominate and get for free, right? Depending on, what you're taking and what bonuses and stuff. Now, these rules have been out. Some people got these books early, GW sending on press copies or whatever you want to call it to some of the, some of the dedicated Age of Sigmar sites out there, which is great because we all got this look, and, we saw these pictures of Ariel on the War Beetle, and it was like, what is going on? That looks so fresh. I can't believe it. So we've seen her rules before, but obviously she is amazing. Now, she is, from what I could tell, the third most expensive character out there in Age of Sigmar. She comes in at 620 points, Nagash is 900, and I forgot to look up the Lord Celestin, or Celestin Prime, but Archaon 700. So she's 620, so she's no slouch in the heavy hitting department here. And we've already reviewed her, taking a look at her sprues and stuff, what she actually looks like. I guess she sold out on GW's website. So obviously a slam dunk, home run, whatever you want to call it, for Games Workshop with this new release, because these things are selling out like popsicles on a hot summer day in the Season of War here. So she is a great place to start. Now, not everybody's going to have that many points to put in their army, and not a lot of battalions actually give you a bonus for even taking her. Now, there is one where you can basically play out the scenario of defending her, and when she was still dormant, but there isn't any that really capture the magic and the essence of her. They're more dealing with some of the tree folk and things like that. But she does some serious work. First of all, she can fly. Her move, depending on how much damage she's taken. And just some basics here. If you see the asterisks, it's basically you have to apply the appropriate value down here to how much damage she's taken. But speaking of damage, she can heal herself every hero phase. So she's pretty solid. Pretty solid to take. The beetle does work, charging in, it can do damage to terrain, which damages, when it hits terrain, it damages dudes inside terrain. There's all sorts of good stuff going on here. So she might be a really good place to start. And we got Drachia. Oh, and of course, she's a leader and a behemoth type as well. We got Drachia over here, the new version of her. And of course, she's a behemoth as well, as long as a leader, if you're fielding her competitively. She's got some great abilities, some different attacks and things like that. So kind of take a closer look at it, kind of figure out what, I don't have to tell you what these abilities do. You can figure that stuff out. I just want to help you construct your army and get it up to the tabletop and give you an idea of basically what's going on. Because in the time, or the Season of War missions, or the stuff in General's Handbook, they encourage you having multiple units to take objectives. Having a lot of heroes is also a good thing because they can benefit a lot of the mission types as well. So you want to make sure that you've got that you've got some leaders, you got some heroes. Having multiple units is good, but you don't want to have too many that you don't finish setting up first, and therefore don't get to choose who goes first. So those are some ideas as you're thinking about what to take here. Then you got the Spirit of Durthu. We'll go with Durthu. He's the big treant lord guy right there. He is 400 points. He's a leader and a behemoth. Tree Lord Ancient, also a leader and a behemoth, but basically that's the only thing that sets him apart from the Tree Lord itself, which is only a behemoth, and he's 300, he's 260 right here. And then we got the Branch Witch and the Branch Wraith. Those are both 100 points and both leaders. Like I said, this is a great way for you to scoop up heroes and casters as well. Then you got Tree Revenants, which are the new releases this week. There's the more elfy looking half man, half tree kind of things. Those guys are a battle line if you're Sylvaneth keyword. Sprite Revenants, they're kind of like the outcasts. They don't really have a particular type. They are, the Tree Revenants are 100 points for 5. These guys are 100 points for 5 as well, but no battlefield role. Then you got the Kurnoth Hunters, which are, I think, 180. I want to say that was, they're 180 for 3, so it's basically exactly how they come out of the box. And then you got the Dryads, and these guys have no battlefield role as well. Dryads, they are a straight battle line, regardless of whether you take Sylvaneth or not. They are fielded in squads of 10 for, I want to say it was 120 points right there. So they are just the easiest way to get a battle line if you're playing straight Sylvaneth. And I couldn't find any entry for the Wildwood, but you do need these because there's a lot of magical powers that actually help you if you have those. So there's the actual rules for the units, or the war scrolls if you want to call them that. Now getting into their special rules right here, which is really what I want to spend a lot of time on. This is new for the war or the battle tomes, because before you didn't get quite as much stuff in here. So now you've got the allegiance. If everything in here is Sylvaneth, you get basically special abilities that you can roll for over here, these command traits. Okay. Then there's also some special abilities called Navigate Realm Routes, Sylvaneth armies. Remember, it has to have the keyword Sylvaneth, the complete, have the allegiance Sylvaneth in here. They can do different things, like basically kind of teleport through the trees and pop out on another tree. So be a little wary, I guess, if somebody wants to set up a bunch of these wildwoods on the tabletop, because, they're going to port around. And there's different drawbacks. Like if you roll a 1, they basically pop out and they can't do anything else. If they roll a 2 to 5, they can't move any further. If they roll a 6, they can move again during this movement phase. So the Tree Lords always get treated as safe passage, because they basically know what's up in the world tree right there. And then of course you got these specific battle traits right here. If all the pieces of terrain are set up, you can choose to place one Sylvaneth Wildwood anywhere on the table that's more than 1 inch from another piece of scenery. Okay, so that's, remember, if you're all Sylvaneth. These is everything allegiance ability, so it doesn't count if you're just order. You have to be all Sylvaneth. For spirits, instead of setting up a unit or a battalion, you can place it to one side and say it's part of a hidden enclave. When you do set it up, all models have to be within 3 inches of a Sylvaneth Wildwood and more than 9 inches from enemy models. Very similar to the magma tunnels that the Durden used. So they're not the only ones that get to do it. And basically this special rule right here lets you bring at least one Sylvaneth Wildwood. So it's good that they put the precedent on it not getting so ridiculously out of control on setup, and they basically force you to take one. That's really neat, and I like Games Workshop's forward thinking right there, and the development team. Now there are, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to do it, there is a spell that lets you get more Sylvaneth Wildwoods, right? They can cast it anywhere within 18 inches of the caster and not within 1 inch of any model. But they specifically say, hey, this is really just for this particular piece of terrain here. If you don't have it, we suggest you pick a different spell for your wizard. So trying to not get it so out of control and obnoxious right here, because when you start using other pieces of terrain, yes, it's a business thing, but when you start using other pieces of terrain, it starts becoming a little bit harder to deal with, and you have these inconsistencies that you're not familiar with, like if you're using aquarium plants, or you know, stuff like that. It might not work as well, you know what I mean? So this is just to kind of give it a baseline. And I like that they're putting hints and tips, you know, basically designer notes right in here. Now, this is the spell lore for the Sylvaneth. If it's a Sylvaneth army, we talked about the allegiance thing right there, right? Pick one of the best matches that best matches the background story or glade of your wizard. Alternatively, you can roll a dice to randomly determine which extra spell is known to the wizard. So, they know an additional spell chosen from the Deep Wood spell lore, the natural mastery of life magic that allows the children of Ariel to turn the realms themselves against their foes. So basically, when you have a wizard, they know the arcane bolt and the mystical shield. So now you get to pick a spell, boom, out of here if your wizard is Sylvaneth. So that's kind of cool. So the first one here, Throne of Vines, is casting value of 5. It's successfully cast. They get D3 to all future casting and unbinding rules they make until the next move. Okay, well, that's cool, I guess. Unbinding is good. Once cast, the caster cannot cast a spell again until they have moved. Regrowth, casting value of 5. Pick the caster a friendly unit within 18. One model in the unit you picked heals D3 wounds, very useful. If it's a Sylvaneth unit, one model in the unit heals D6 wounds. That could be super useful, depending on the model that you're trying to heal. I feel like regrowth, So then over here to the Dwellers Below, another fan favorite. Some of you might recognize that name right there. A casting value of 7. Pick an enemy unit within 10 inches. Roll a dice for each model in the unit you picked. If the unit suffers a mortal wound for each roll of 6. So, say it has 10 in there, you roll 10 dice, every 6 takes a mortal wound. Your enemy basically gets to allocate it out. The Reaping, casting value of 6 is successfully cast. All enemy units within 3 inches suffer D3 mortal wounds. So that'd be a good one to cast once you get in, start doing some fisticuffs right there. Tree Song, casting value of 7. Pick a Sylvaneth Wildwood within 10 of the caster. The Wildwood, roused by the magical ability, is immediately activated. After resolving damage, roll 2 dice and move the Wildwood in any direction up to the distance rolled in inches. It cannot move within 3 inches of an enemy model or any other terrain features. Any units that are wholly within and Sylvaneth Wildwood are moved along with it. Wow. Shifting Worldscape. Can you say Shifting Worldscape in 40k? That's pretty cool. And so it basically can move around and do shenanigans, as we like to call them. So these are the lores of the Sylvaneth army right here. So keep that in mind, right? Now, we get to another first for Age of Sigmar. As far as I know, you got magical artifacts as well as ancient treasures. So it's basically like war gear, along with arcane items, I guess you want to say, kind of like the days of old with a battalion. So that's pretty neat to see. So what's cool about this is any Sylvaneth hero can just basically declare the artifact. He just basically gets to pick an artifact out of here. Now, ideally, the artifact should pick the appearance of the model or heroic backstory. Alternatively, roll a dice and look up on the roll on the table or randomly select one. If the hero is a wizard, then they may wield an item from the arcane treasures table instead of magical artifacts, okay? You may choose one additional hero to have an artifact of power for each War Scroll battalion, including in your army. So keep that in mind. For each battalion you take, you get to nominate a hero to get another piece of war gear, right? So that's kind of cool. The same model cannot have more than one artifact of power. So you've got these all listed right here. You got Death Reaper. Pick one hero's melee weapon to be the Death Reaper. When making attacks, the roll wounds of 6 have a rend characteristic of -4. Then there's some armor, +1 saves to the rolls. Then you got another, your opponent must subtract -1 to all hit rolls made against the Briar Chief's Baer, so it's basically a ward kind of type deal. Seeds of Rebirth. When the bearer of this artifact loses his last wound, immediately heals D3 wounds. That's pretty neat. Now, also too, one caveat aside: special characters like Ariel and the Branch Wraith cannot take these. This is just basically for generic heroes, and they make a special note of that, which I forgot to tell you. So stuff like this would get a little stackable, I feel like, if you did that with Ariel. She would literally never die. Wraith Stone, subtract 1 bravery to all enemy units within 10 inches of the bearer in the battle shock phase. Glamour Weave, roll a dice. Each time the bearer suffers an unsaved wound or a mortal wound, on a roll of 6, the wound is ignored. Very neat. but it doesn't happen very often. So then we go to the arcane treasures, which are obviously going to help the wizards. The first one, the Acorn of the Ages. Once per game, your hero in the hero phase set up a new Sylvaneth Wildwood. Anywhere within 5 inches of the Baer cannot be set up within an inch of any other models to terrain features. So it's the Acorn of the old Wood Elf days. Pretty neat to see it coming back here. Warsong Stave, the Baer knows the Tree Song spell. Okay, I sense a theme here. We're making trees. Moonstone of the Hidden Ways. Once per game, when instead of moving this Baer in the movement phase, remove them from the battlefield and place them anywhere that is more than 4 inches from enemy models. Kind of like a Gate of Infinity, so to speak. And then you've got this next one here. Add 1 to all casting rolls for the Baer of the Lamentree. If attempted to cast a spell from the Deepwood spell lore, add 2 to the roll instead. That's really neat. Hagbane Spite. Once per game, instead of attempting to unbind a spell, the Baer can send forth their Hagbane Spite to attack the caster. After resolving the spell's effect, the caster immediately suffers D3 mortal wounds. Oof, that's rough. And Silverwood Circlet. 6 inch to the maximum range of every spell that the wearer knows. It's situational, that might come into play. So there's all the special stuff. Now we get into the battalions, which I'm just going to blow through really quick. Because what I wanted to do was tell you basically how many points these become. Because it's very important, because there's a lot of, there's basically, they call them war groves at the back of this section, which contain multiple battalions. So if you're playing competitively, you might not always be able to take these, because these themselves have a points cost. Basically put into them. So, you know, if you have the General's Compendium, which we do right here, that will also have the cost on it, basically, for each of these war groves and battalions. So there's a whole bunch of them, and that's why when I saw it in the General's Compendium, I was like, what the heck is going on here? Okay, so we've got the Free Spirits, which is 1 Son of Durthu and 3 units of Kurnoth Hunters, which that basically comes out to about 1,000 points, because these 400 basically, depending on how you want to do it. And then these guys right here are 180. So this is a very expensive particular battalion, and it's also an additional 40 points as well on top of that. The Lords of the Clan are about 800 points. And that one, the actual cost of taking this is 60 points. Sylvaneth Household, that one, it runs about 460 points, depending on, this is complete minimum. So just to get it in your army, these are the points I'm telling you, basically. So 460 here with a tax of, let's see, a tax of 20 points, which isn't too bad. And then you got the Forest Folk. Again, that is going to run you about 340 points right off the bat with a 60-point tax for the battalion. The Outcasts, which have no battlefield role whatsoever, are 40 points on top of the 300 points to field the models. And then you get to the Sylvaneth War Grove, which is, now you're looking at a collection of these different battalions, right? All in here. So you've got the Lord of the Clan. This one is like 1,000 points, and once you do all the math on here, you're basically like 3,300 just for these models, not counting the tax to take this. So you're somewhere probably more around 3,500 points for paying for the battalions themselves. And then the War Grove itself is another 100 points. So you're basically 3,600 points minimum to field this one here. Then the Oakenbrow War Grove, which is a little bit different. Now that you kind of got that baseline, you've got 0 to 3 choices here. So at 0, it kind of just like whatever. So Lords of the Clan Battalion, now this one has to get bumped up a little bit, and these guys are basically 360 points, I want to say, for a Tree Lord. So instead of the 1 to 3, now you're taking 2, so now it doubles. So now you're talking roughly 1,300 points. And then the Oakenbrow tax itself is 80 points. Now this doesn't have anything in here that you can't from a different keyword. This is all Sylvaneth in here. Then you got the Gnarl Root, which again is got a bunch of zeros in here. But look at this, you can take an Order Wizard, you know, basically from any other faction in Age of Sigmar. So, you know, as long as it's in the Grand Alliance order book, you can basically take this, which is kind of neat. 1 Household Battalion, which is going to run you 460 points without the tax on the battalion itself. And the Gnarlwood tax is 80 points right there. So you kind of get the idea that these things are all kind of building up into bigger and bigger things. So you're starting to get your detachments now for Age of Sigmar, and this is probably what we're going to see more and more of, I imagine, going forward. The Heartwood Wargrove is a Free Spirits Battalion, which must contain now 4 to 6 units instead of 3. So now you're talking almost 1,200 points right here. But you can also have, nope, this is all the normal stuff out of this book right here. So this one can get a little pricey. Heartwood and Wargrove is coming in at 60 points. Then the Ironbark, which is 1 household battalion, which must contain 1 additional unit of Tree of Revenants. Okay, those are only 100 points, so that's not that bad. So household's about, so that's going to be about 4, almost around 600 points right there. Plus the Ironbark itself is 60 points. Now you can also sideboard in some Duradins, which are the dwarfs, which is really neat to see, right? And they kind of give you these talismans, which you don't have to have them in your army, but it's cool to see that you can, where you get +1 to wound rolls made from all the bearer's weapons in this whole thing. So a lot of these are a great start if you want to field the whole army, and this is basically your detachment, and then you drill it down, and now you sideboard in some dwarfs, and the other one you can get some order wizards. So this is really neat to see that this is a precedent for basically allies in the Age of Sigmar. Winterleaf Wargrove, 1 Forest Folk Battalion, it's at 340. And with the Winterleaf itself, 100, and then of course you can add a bunch of stuff in here. Also, just a random order unit itself. So now you can have stuff from Stormcast, you can have Duradin, you know, you can have the elves. I don't think Malchius, maybe they are, I forget. There's so much to keep track of it these days. But that's really neat to see. Now you're really starting to get very whole lot of character, very characterful builds to these armies. The Dreadwood Wargrove contains 1 Outcast Battalion. Those are the spirit guys. That's 300 points. Now you have to have an extra one. It's 400 points. A Dreadwood runs you tax-wise. It's going to run you 100 points. Doesn't have anything else extra here. It's all Sylvaneth stuff mostly, but any number of additional Sylvaneth units. So that's really cool to see, which is pretty much the standard on most of these. Is you can keep it Sylvaneth if you want, but remember you break away from the allegiance you know, benefits if you do it that way. But keep in mind, if you put in order stuff, now you're technically getting the allegiance order stuff or order special abilities, which we'll show you from the General's Handbook here in a second, right? So Harvest Moon Wargrove, there's only a couple more, or actually one more. 1 Forest Folk Battalion, which is 340. And with this tax right here on the Harvest Moon, you're looking, or Harvest Boon, excuse me, you're looking at 100 points extra right there on top of it. So that is pretty much all the Wargroves. And then if you want to field something kind of fluffy, the Guardians of Ariel, when she was basically hibernating inside of the old, the Mistress of the Vine, the Lady of the Vines, that's the old Branchwithe model right there, or Drachia. So this is kind of like a little thing that you can kind of do where it basically gives you specific units. So it basically takes it back from a Wargrove back to kind of like a battalion, and it's kind of fluffy right there. And that, I think, has a value as well. That is 120 points tax right on top of this, in addition to the points cost right there. So basically, you know, normal stuff that's out of the General's Handbook in the points section. If you're confused about where those points are, well, they're right here. Underneath each section, there will be a battalion points section for most things that do have battalions. Now, like we were talking about there, the order benefits are right here in the back of the book, the General's Handbook. Now, this is a $25 book, which is pretty much essential for most people gonna play competitive Age of Sigmar. And here they are right here. You can choose straight up from a command trait. You can choose straight up one of the artifacts of order. You can choose multiple of these for multiple battalions and multiple heroes. So that's why it's so important to take these heroes. And of course, business end of it, Games Workshop wants to sell the heroes because a lot of times those are the $30 models. So it all works hand in hand. We get new rules, we get, you know, we help pay the development costs, we keep GW in business, and we get cool benefits in game. It all works out, right? I like to think so. So that is 25 minutes later, a closer look and giving you some tips and tactics on how to actually field the Sylvaneth models. Now, I didn't really get into their abilities, like I said. The War Scrolls have been out for a while. The Kurnoth Hunters are just beasts. Take their scythes. They're ridiculously good. You can still shoot in combat, remember? Well, there's technically no combat, but you can still shoot when you're basically right next to things. You can shoot in, you can shoot out, you can shoot around. Doesn't even matter. So those are a very well-rounded unit, I feel like, the Kurnoth Hunters. And Ariel is just a beat stick, but again, she doesn't have a lot of battalions that benefit her. But remember, at the bottom, it always said you can bring in, you know, another battalion or another order, Sylvaneth keyword unit. So don't be afraid to bring in Ariel if you can fit, you know, whatever it was, 620 points, I think, into the army. So there it is. There's our tips and tactics video on the new Sylvaneth Battletome for the Age of Sigmar.